The other positions that I want you to think about are not what I call ready positions. They're not ready to fire positions. They're registered positions. So how do I move safely with a gun in my hand? Now, you guys remember what I talked about at the beginning of the day. The reason I'm so big on the speed from the holster is not just that I shoot IDPA and love doing that stuff, right? It's that from a practical sense, the faster and more efficient you are, the more confident you are to wait before the gun comes out. If I know I've got a solid 1 second draw, a solid 1.5 second draw, then I'm going to be more confident to wait and assess the situation before I pull a gun out. If you've got a 5 second draw and you got a guy standing even as far away as those cars with a knife in his hand, you better take the gun out, right? If I'm that much more tuned up with a confident draw, I can wait a little longer, which legally might be a very good thing. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Also, back there, remember we talked about active shooters. I'm in the mall, I hear gunfire. Well, I don't see the monster. I don't see him. Well, if I'm not confident getting that gun out, I might take it out, even though I don't yet see him, and get burned down by one of my fellow concealed carriers or a responding police officer, right? But if I have the confidence to wait, now I see him, now it's time, right? But there are times when the gun may have to come out. Okay, what if you wake up, oh, dark 30, that typical bump in the night, okay, you're gonna go see what it is. Let's admit it, we don't all call 911 when it's a bump, we go see what it is. Even though tactically we should wait, let the threat come to you. If it's a bump, do you do that? You go see what it is, right? Because 99 times out of 100, it's, you know, the dog knocks something over or whatever, okay? So you might not be wearing a holster, you might pick the gun up, okay? So if you have to move around with the gun, remember our 4 life rules, right? What's rule 2?
Muzzle.
Never cover with the muzzle anything you're not willing to destroy, right? And as Clint Smith said, the rules are for fighting, not just for administratively handling guns, okay? So as I move with this gun, rule 2 is always in play. Rule 3 is always in play. I'm touching steel. Unless I'm shooting, my finger's on steel, not on the trigger, right? So let's say you have to draw the gun and move around people in a crowded environment. Besides your ready position, which again, I've always favored a very compressed ready position, but whichever you prefer, besides that ready position, I'll give you 2 registered positions that do almost everything for you. One is to come in and tuck the gun up with a single hand up under your pec muscle. You guys will notice this looks very similar to the old school, what was called position Sul.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason I don't like position Sul, this served a purpose when they first taught it, was for the guys in like stacks going through doors, you know, so they weren't pointing guns at the back of each other's head. Okay. This ties up both your hands. Now, my second hand is not tied up, it's still in the same position. Position Sul. One-handed Sul, or whatever you want to call it, okay? Anytime you can touch a part of your body under stress is very helpful. So what I'm doing here is the knuckle joint of my thumb, I'm just pressing up to the bottom of my pec muscle. You'll notice that my muzzle is pointed down to about here. Again, blue gun, I'm not pointing a gun at my legs, right? It's a blue gun, okay? That's a good thing. Now I have the flexibility to open doors, to grab a child, whatever. My muzzle is going into the dirt about 2 feet in front of my body, okay? If I have to move a kid, if I have to grab somebody, take control of somebody, turn on lights, hold a railing, whatever. Fantastic position. And from here, where are we at? Think about it. Remember the part in our draw process where we marry hands? We're there, right? So now if I have to extend out, support hand comes back to the chest, extend out, right? It's right there for me, okay? And it doesn't tie up my support hand. Now, the exception would be that position, in my opinion, is the single best registered position because it is essentially safe to anything not within about 2 feet of knee. It's pointed straight into the dirt, okay? Now, possible exception, what if we've got kids around us? What if we got a 3-year-old crying and hanging onto our leg? Use your imagination, right? What if even this is not the safest possible thing? when you're in a bad circumstance, the safe direction is not the safe direction. It's usually the safest direction. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? So if the safest direction is pointed upward, I mean, hell, maybe you're in an apartment on the top floor, so there's nobody above you, but there's people below you. Guess what? 9mm round probably go through those floorboards and go right through that ceiling, right? The safest position might be up. So even though this looks weird and has caught a lot of flack over the years, I like the temple index, okay? What the temple index does for you is, again, remember when you can press against your body under stress, it helps. So temple index, I am pressing the knuckle, this knuckle of my thumb, right against essentially my temple. What that's doing is it's now giving me reference in space as I move. I know where the gun is. If it's just here, let me tell you, under stress, here can very quickly become here when you bump into something or somebody presses it into you or whatever the case may be. Temple index. You got to be careful with this. It's not perfect. Like a lot of vehicle classes teach guys to go to that as they get out of the vehicle, and then you see guys hitting the top of the door frame. Does that make sense? So it's not perfect, but I'll tell you where it shines. If I am in a situation that is crowded and I've got kids or people below me, whatever the capacity is, if the safest direction is up, I like it here because I know where it is. It's with me in space. Even if I bump it on stuff, remember, I'm touching steel. Rule 3. Rule 3 is a life rule. We fight with the rules, not just administratively handled guns, right? So I'm touching steel, and up here, even if I bump into things, it's pretty solid, and I know where it is in space. So if I've got to pick up a kid, whatever the case may be, I move around. If this is my safest direction, that's what I'm going with. If down is my safest direction, I'm going with this pectoral index with the thumb knuckle against my pec. Up, thumb knuckle is against my temple. Down is against my pec. Ready position. Whether it's an extended ready, if that's your preference, or a compressed ready, okay, that's one. That's an actual ready position, ready to shoot. This pectoral index. Okay, it's different than the close range contact distance shooting with pectoral index that you'll hear about. This is the front side of the pec, okay? If I have to move, this is my go-to. I can work doors, I can work light switches. I'm not flagging my own hand in space, yet it's still giving me plenty of standoff from my feet. And if the safest at the moment is up, I'm going with temple index. Make sense to everybody? Those 3 positions will do pretty much anything you need to do with a handgun if it's out of the holster.